The throne room pulsed with molten light, casting shifting shadows across crystalline walls that seemed almost alive. Every surface reflected the grandeur of the Vakari Empire, yet tonight, the brilliance felt like a cage. Queen Vera sat upon her throne, her many eyes narrowing as a single thought consumed her. Where are my daughters? Reports had arrived in a steady, chaotic stream, each more impossible than the last. Her daughters, her precious heirs, had vanished from the royal palace. Security logs showed only one anomaly: a human, a species long deemed fragile and inconsequential, had somehow entered the inner garden. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with disbelief and fury. Humans were delicate, barely capable of survival on their own planets, and yet here one had breached the most secure area in the Empire. Every Vakari guard had been stationed in a web of detection fields, magical wards, and bioscanners. How could a human penetrate such defenses without detection? The throne room vibrated with the energy of her anger. Her aides and generals stood at attention, each wary of her gaze. She could feel their nervous energy ripple through the air, like a faint electrical storm. Vera's voice, usually a calm force that could command armies, erupted. "Explain this," she demanded, her words slicing through the tension like a blade. "One of my daughters is missing, and you claim a human of all beings entered the palace unchallenged." The lead aide stepped forward, bowing low. "Your Majesty, we have traced the presence to the royal garden." All defenses functioned nominally. Yet, Vera's voice hardened, reverberating against the walls. Yet, it failed. Again. "Tell me the truth, or I will find someone who can." The aide swallowed. "We do not know, Your Majesty." The human left no trace, no mark on wards or alarms, only the faint residue of warmth, like a shadow on the air itself. Vera's multiple pupils constricted. Warmth. A human. What power could they possess to elude all security? She leaned forward, her many eyes glinting like polished onyx. The air in the throne room thickened, charged with a sense of impending reckoning. "Prepare my guards," she commanded, her tone slicing through the chamber. "We leave at once. I will see this human with my own eyes. If it has dared touch my daughters." Her voice trailed, but the threat was clear. Death or disgrace would follow. Her generals exchanged uneasy glances. None had ever seen the queen so unsettled. Normally, she handled rebellion, sabotage, and betrayal with methodical precision. Yet this human defied all logic. As they moved toward the garden, the queen's mind raced. Humans were said to be fragile, chaotic, unpredictable. Could they also be cunning, adaptive, or, worse, dangerous in ways she had never imagined? The palace corridors stretched ahead, illuminated by the soft glow of embedded crystals. The scent of alien flora and ozone filled the air, creating an almost electric anticipation. Vera's pulse quickened, and with each step, the shadows seemed to twist and shift unnaturally, as though aware of the coming confrontation. Finally, they reached the edge of the garden. The outer wards shimmered faintly in the moonlight, humming like restrained energy. Here, for the first time, Vera hesitated. The air was different, warmer, almost alive with a pulse she could not identify. A chill ran through her many limbs. Somewhere inside the garden, the human waited. And somewhere, too, were her daughters, her precious daughters, untouched. Yet in the grasp of an unknown force, the queen raised her hand, signaling the guards to hold back. She stepped forward alone, drawn by the anomaly that defied every law of her empire. Her eyes scanned the shadows, every leaf, every branch, and then she saw it movement, subtle but unmistakable. A figure, human, small, and vulnerable, yet impossibly still. Her heart tightened. The answers would come, and the consequences would reshape her understanding of humans forever. The garden stretched before Queen Vera like a living tapestry, its bioluminescent flora glowing in soft blues and greens. Every leaf shimmered as if whispering secrets. The air was thick with pollen that floated like tiny stars, reacting to her heartbeat, her fury, her fear. Normally, the garden was a sanctuary of order patrolled by sentinels and shielded by wards, but tonight, it felt alive, watchful, almost afraid. Vera's many eyes scanned the shadows, searching for a flicker of movement. Her limbs trembled not with fear, but with disbelief. How could a human, a being so fragile and unpredictable, survive here? The palace. Aides followed, weapons at the ready. Yet every step forward was a challenge. The paths twisted unnaturally. The plants seemed to close in, almost testing her resolve. A soft rustle echoed from above, a branch swaying in the moonlight. Vera's senses sharpened. She could feel the pulse of life around her, the faint warmth of something alive, something foreign. Then she saw it. It's the first trace of human intrusion. Broken branches littered the path, jagged and splintered, yet the marks were subtle. Nothing like a Vakari would leave behind. The human steps were almost precise, intentional. Vera's pulse quickened. Forward, she commanded, her voice a razor's edge. The guards obeyed, but tension vibrated in the air. Every flower seemed to lean toward the queen, every shadow stretching unnaturally, as if watching. A sudden movement caught her eye, a faint shimmer near the garden's center. She froze. The human was close. Not running, not hiding, but moving with a stillness that felt impossible for his kind. Vera's claws flexed. "Show yourself," she demanded, her voice echoing through the mist. The air thrummed with energy. "I will know if my daughters are harmed." There was no reply, only the faint warmth, pulsing steadily, almost like a heartbeat. The queen stepped forward alone, leaving her guards hesitant at the edge of the garden. Each step made the air thrum harder, the plants bending slightly toward her. Someone was here, and it was waiting. Then she saw the first glimpse of her daughters. Small forms, glowing faintly in the moonlight, nestled against someone. Her heart stopped. A human. Her daughters were safe. Vera's pupils contracted. She could feel the fear in her own chest, the disbelief in her mind. The human he was calm, unflinching. No wards had failed. No weapons were needed. Yet here he stood, or rather, lay, cradling her daughters, as though they were part of him. The queen's instincts screamed. Her daughters were her responsibility, her legacy, her life. And yet, in front of her eyes, a human tiny, fragile, and unarmed had done what no Vakari could. The warmth emanating from him was almost hypnotic. Her daughters stirred, their tiny hands reaching out, grasping at the human's chest. He shifted slightly, adjusting them without breaking a breath. The queen's many eyes widened. How can one being hold such courage, such control, such presence? The shadows deepened as the moonlight filtered through the trees. Something was coming, something unseen. Yet the human remained still, calm, unshaken. Vera realized then that this was not mere luck or instinct. The human had purpose, precision, and perhaps power beyond her understanding. "Step closer," she ordered herself silently, each step measured, careful. "I must see him clearly. I must understand how this human defied every expectation." And in that moment, the garden itself seemed to hold its breath. Leaves hung suspended in the air. Even the soft hum of alien insects stilled. Queen Vera's fury burned hotter, but it was tempered by awe, curiosity, and fear. Somewhere in the shadows, the truth waited to reveal itself. And when it did, the queen knew her perception of humanity would be forever altered. Moonlight filtered through the twisted branches of the royal garden, casting fractured silver patterns across the ground. The air shimmered faintly, alive with the pulse of alien flora, their soft glow reflecting on Queen Vera's many eyes. Her heart thudded with a mixture of fear, fury, and disbelief. She had entered this garden expecting confrontation, but what she saw made her pause, rooted to the spot. There, in the center of the clearing, lay a human, small, fragile, and utterly still. On his chest, nestled as if drawn by some magnetic force, were her daughters, her precious heirs. Their tiny forms glowed faintly in the soft moonlight, eyes closed, breathing steady. They were safe. They were calm. They were happy. Vera's pupils constricted. Every instinct screamed at her, strike, attack, protect, yet she could not. The human was doing something no Vakari could. He had her daughter's trust completely. And more than that, he radiated a presence that was almost palpable, a warmth that seemed to defy the cold sterility of the palace. A rustle of leaves startled her. The garden seemed alive, responding to the tension. Shadows deepened and swirled, as if observing, waiting. The queen stepped forward, claws flexing, yet every step felt tentative, almost reverent. What kind of being is this? She wondered. How can something so fragile inspire calm in my daughters? The human stirred, slowly, eyes opening, not with fear, but with awareness. His gaze swept the clearing, landing on the queen. His expression was calm, steady, even defiant. There was no flinching, no panic. It was a small, unarmed human, yet every movement spoke of strength beyond what she had imagined possible. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. It echoed through the garden, bouncing off luminescent leaves and the still air. The human made no sound, yet somehow, through subtle gestures, he communicated understanding. A slight tilt of his head, a gentle shift of the children, a quiet, measured exhalation. The daughters stirred, pressing closer to him. Vera felt a pang of unease. Every instinct screamed that she should intervene, pull her daughters away, but she could not. Their trust was absolute, and the human's presence was anchoring them. Her aides and guards edged forward, but the queen raised a hand. "Stay," she commanded. Even in her fury, she needed to see this clearly. The clearing seemed to hold its breath. The leaves stopped rustling. The faint hum of nocturnal insects stilled. Only the glow of the daughters and the calm, improbable human remained. The tension was almost unbearable. Then, as if sensing her thoughts, the human rose slightly on one elbow, still cradling the girls. He did not retreat. He did not attack. He simply existed, strong, steady, unshakable. Vera's pulse quickened. This human is not weak. This human is extraordinary. A sudden rustle from the tree line drew her eyes. Something or someone was moving just beyond the edge of the clearing. The human's gaze flicked toward it, and in an instant, his posture became alert. But still, he did not flee. He did not panic. And yet, there was an unmistakable readiness, an instinctual precision in his every movement. The queen realized the truth before her mind could fully comprehend it. This human had saved her daughters, not by force alone, but by presence, by courage, by intelligence beyond what she had considered possible. Her fury faltered, replaced by a surge of respect and a hint of fear. Vera stepped forward again, slowly, deliberately, letting her gaze sweep over the scene. The daughters were safe, cradled against this fragile creature, entirely unaware of the danger they had been in. And yet, the danger had been overcome, not by Vakari guards or technology, but by a human's unyielding instinct and calm authority. For the first time in her reign, the queen felt uncertainty. Have I underestimated humanity? She wondered. Have I judged them all too quickly? The garden seemed to hum in acknowledgement of her thoughts. The shadows shifted, the leaves swayed slightly, and the air shimmered around them, thick with anticipation. The answers were here, in this improbable human, waiting to reveal themselves, and the consequences would shake the foundation of everything Vera thought she knew about strength, courage, and trust. The moonlight had shifted, painting the royal garden in silvery streaks that sliced through the shadows. Queen Vera's many eyes narrowed, the glow reflecting off crystalline walls of the nearby palace, and she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. This human, small, seemingly fragile, and utterly unarmed, had her daughters in his care. And yet, he radiated a calm authority she could not define, a presence that made her guards hesitate, and the very garden seemed to pause. "Bring him to the justice chamber," she ordered, her voice a low hum that vibrated in the air. The aides and guards moved swiftly, but even as they approached, the human remained seated, carefully cradling the princesses. He did not flinch. He did not panic. He simply watched, steady and alert. The justice chamber was a vast hall of suspended crystal panels that refracted light like living prisms. Hovering devices projected the law codes and records in glowing scripts, circling the room in an eerie, hypnotic ballet. The guards formed a circle around the human, weapons at the ready, while Queen Vera's gaze cut through the space like a blade. "You will speak," she commanded, telepathically projecting her demand into his mind. The human blinked once, slowly, clearly processing the flood of alien thoughts. Then he did something utterly unexpected. He remained silent, not defiant, not ignorant, just calm. His stillness drew the queen in, almost forcing her to pause. The guards shifted uneasily. No alien had ever faced the queen's telepathy without fear or reaction. Yet here he was, completely steady. Vera's pupils contracted, her heartbeat quickening. How can this be? She sent another wave of thought, sharper this time, demanding explanation. "Why did you enter the palace? How did you touch my daughters, without harm? Answer me." The human's gaze remained unflinching. Then, through subtle gestures, tilting his head, a measured breath, a small shift of the princesses, he communicated understanding, empathy, and calm authority. The daughters relaxed further, pressing against him. Queen Vera felt her pulse tighten. Their trust in this human was absolute, and she could not ignore it. A tense silence filled the chamber, punctuated only by the soft hum of the hovering crystal panels. The queen's mind raced. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile, chaotic. Yet this one, through nothing more than presence and composure, commanded respect, protected her daughters, and defied every expectation. "Stepped forward," she ordered aloud, her voice echoing off the crystalline walls. The human obeyed, moving deliberately, his every motion careful and precise. He did not run, he did not stumble. He stood small, but not submissive. The queen's many eyes swept over him, analyzing every detail. The steady rise and fall of his chest, the calm in his gaze, the ease with which he managed the daughters. She could feel the subtle pulse of courage emanating from him, a vibration that seemed almost tangible. The air itself felt charged, as if recognizing a new kind of strength, one she had never before considered. A murmur rose among her aides and guards. They glanced at each other, uncertain. The human had entered an alien palace, touched royal children, and yet nothing had gone wrong. No wards had been triggered, no alarms raised, no harm done. The impossible had happened. Pupils narrowed, not in fury, but in awe and calculation. This human is not a threat, and yet he commands respect in ways I cannot control. How can one so small do what my best warriors could not? The human tilted his head slightly toward the queen, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. It was a small, almost imperceptible movement, yet it carried an undeniable clarity. He understood, and he was willing to face whatever came next. The queen realized then that this was more than a simple trespass. This human's presence, his courage, his calm, challenged the very assumptions that the Vakari Empire had held for generations. And in that realization, a seed of something new took root: respect. The silent trial had begun. But it was not the human who was being tested, was the queen herself. The moon had dipped lower, casting the garden in shifting silver and shadow. Every leaf, every petal, seemed alive, responding to the presence of the human and the royal daughters. Queen Vera watched from the edge of the chamber, her many eyes narrowing as her pulse quickened. The daughters, tiny and glowing faintly in the moonlight, clung to the human's chest, trusting him utterly. The scene was unsettling. Every instinct told the queen to intervene, to reclaim her children, to reassert control. Yet the sight froze her in place. How can a human fragile, unarmed, and seemingly ordinary command such absolute trust? The human shifted slightly, adjusting the daughters without disturbing their sleep. His movements were careful, precise, and deliberate, as if every action was considered in advance. The air around him seemed to hum subtly, almost imperceptibly, a rhythm that matched the steady rise and fall of his chest. The queen's pulse raced. A guard stepped forward instinctively, hand raised, but Vera's sharp command froze him. "Not yet. I must understand this fully." From the shadows, the daughters murmured softly. Their tiny fingers brushed against the human skin, and a faint, glowing warmth spread outward, enveloping him like a halo. It was as if their trust energized him, making him more formidable than any weapon. Vera's pupils constricted. "This is impossible." The human's gaze swept over the garden, alert but unthreatened. Then he looked at the queen, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. There was no fear, no submission, only quiet assurance. He was not intimidated. He was not fleeing. He was present, completely, unwaveringly present. A sudden rustle from the perimeter of the garden made the queen tense. She expected danger, some hidden threat, but the human's reaction was subtle, yet decisive. He shifted slightly, subtly positioning himself to shield the princesses. He did not panic. He did not strike. He simply adjusted, his awareness encompassing everything at once. The daughters laughed softly, a sound like crystal chimes, startling the queen. The human responded with gentle gestures, encouraging them, ensuring they were safe. And as the queen watched, a revelation struck her. This human's strength was not in weapons or size, but in something she had never fully appreciated: intuition, empathy, and courage under pressure. Her pulse slowed slightly, replaced by a mix of awe and unease. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but this unpredictability was not weakness, it was adaptability. They could read situations, sense threats, and respond with a precision that defied calculation. The princesses shifted again, moving closer, pressing against the human's chest, as if drawn by some magnetic force. Vera's many eyes softened involuntarily. Her daughters were safe. More than safe, they were happy, secure, and at ease. And the human, he had earned this trust effortlessly. For the first time in her life, the queen felt the weight of doubt. Have I underestimated humanity? She wondered. Have I judged them all by their fragility, rather than their potential? The garden itself seemed to recognize this shift. The bioluminescent plants glowed brighter, the shadows softened, and a faint breeze carried a sense of anticipation. Something was changing here, and it was not the human alone, it was the dynamic between species, between trust and fear, between caution and understanding. Vera took a careful step closer, allowing herself to observe without intervening. She noticed every detail, the calm in his eyes, the subtle movements that protected her daughters, the quiet confidence radiating from him. Each moment reinforced the truth she could no longer deny. Humans were extraordinary, not in ways her empire had calculated, but in ways that mattered more than any weapon, any ward, any guard. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched the human's lips. He seemed to sense the queen's gaze, the hesitation in her judgment. And in that smile, the queen realized that the silent lesson was clear. Strength could take many forms, and sometimes the most underestimated beings were the ones capable of the impossible. Queen. Vera stepped back into the shadows, her fury tempered, her curiosity ignited. She had not yet embraced this human, but she could not dismiss him either. The trial was only beginning, and the lessons would extend far beyond the garden. The daughters laughed again, tiny hands reaching out to the human, pressing against him, claiming him as their protector. And in that laughter, in that quiet, unshakable trust, the queen glimpsed the truth. Humanity was a force unlike any she had anticipated. The calm of the garden was deceptive. Even as Queen Vera lingered at the edge, the bioluminescent flora glowing softly around her, the queen could feel a subtle shift in the air, a ripple of tension that spoke of unseen threats. She had watched the human protect her daughters with unwavering composure, but now the real danger loomed closer than anyone could anticipate. From the shadows at the edge of the garden, faint movements stirred. Shapes, barely visible, slipped through the darkness. Smugglers, alien mercenaries, known for their ruthlessness, had come to abduct the princesses. Their presence was silent, calculated, and deadly. Vera's pulse quickened. Guards shifted, nervously, hands brushing the hilts of their weapons. The queen's instincts screamed that intervention was needed, but the human small, unarmed, and improbably calm remained at the center. Her daughters nestled against him. Then the human acted. He rose slightly on one knee, scanning the shadows with an alertness that defied his size. A subtle shift of his weight, a slight turn of his head, and he positioned the princesses behind him with precision, ensuring their safety, while keeping himself exposed. His movements were quiet, almost imperceptible, yet every gesture radiated authority and control. Vera's many eyes widened. How can one being so fragile anticipate danger that my guards could not? She thought, her fury now tempered by astonishment. The smugglers advanced, their weapons glowing faintly as they prepared to strike. But the human, without raising a weapon, acted with an intuition that seemed almost preternatural. He stepped lightly, silently, guiding the princesses through subtle movements that allowed them to remain hidden, all while drawing the intruder's attention away. Every step, every breath was calculated. The daughters, sensing his confidence, remained calm, their trust absolute. A sudden flash of light erupted from a hidden corner, an intruder attempting to flank them. The human reacted instantly, using the shadows and foliage to create a barrier between the attackers and the princesses. He moved with precision, dodging, shifting, and manipulating the environment around him. No magic, no alien technology. Only the sheer ingenuity of instinct and human adaptability. Queen Vera felt her pulse tighten. She had underestimated humans, not because they lacked power, but because she had failed to grasp the depth of their resourcefulness. The humans' courage, quick thinking, and understanding of space and motion turned the tide in moments when trained Vakari warriors might have hesitated. The attackers hesitated, sensing the human's resolve. His calm presence seemed to radiate outward, unnerving them. Then, in a single, precise action, he triggered a subtle trap among the garden's foliage. Branches and vines shifted, creating a barrier that disoriented the mercenaries without harming them. The human moved the daughters to a hidden alcove beneath a dense thicket, their forms glowing softly in the faint moonlight. He knelt beside them, scanning the shadows, ever aware, ever vigilant. The mercenaries, frustrated and cautious now, could do nothing. Queen Vera, watching from the edge, felt her perception shatter. This human, tiny, seemingly fragile, and unarmed, had neutralized a group of deadly intruders using nothing but intelligence, presence, and courage. The daughters were unharmed, safe, and oblivious to the danger that had passed. For the first time, the queen admitted it to herself. Humanity's strength lay not in brute force or advanced technology, but in adaptability, empathy, and instinct. This human had protected her children where her empire had failed. The shadows receded, the air settled. The garden seemed to exhale, glowing softly as the intruders retreated into the darkness. The human, kneeling with her daughters, exuded calm authority. His ingenuity and courage had turned the impossible into the achieved. Queen Vera's pupils constricted, a mixture of awe and unease coursing through her. The trial was far from over, but one truth was undeniable. Humans were a force that could not be ignored. They were unpredictable, yes, but unpredictability, combined with intelligence and courage, made them extraordinarily dangerous, and extraordinarily capable. And in that realization, the queen understood that her daughter's trust in the human was not merely instinct, was earned, quietly, decisively, and beyond any expectation she had ever held. Dawn's first light filtered into the throne room, glinting off the crystalline panels like shards of molten glass. The palace, a monument of Vakari precision and order, seemed almost smaller in comparison to the impossible presence that now stood before the queen. The human, unarmed, unarmored, yet undeniably commanding, stood with her daughters at his side. Their trust in him was absolute, evident in the way they clung to his chest, tiny fingers brushing against him without fear. Queen Vera's many eyes narrowed, scanning every detail, every motion. She had witnessed the human navigate the royal garden, protect her daughters, and neutralize danger with nothing but intuition and courage. She had expected weakness, chaos, and fear. Instead, she found calm, precision, and authority beyond anything she had imagined possible. The throne room fell silent as aides and guards whispered among themselves, tension thick enough to taste. The human did not flinch under their scrutiny. He did not bow. He simply stood, steady, letting his presence speak louder than words. The princesses giggled softly, their tiny hands reaching out to him, and the queen's pulse tightened. "Step forward," Vera commanded, her voice resonating through the hall. It was a command, but not one laced with anger. It was curiosity, tempered with awe and caution. The human obeyed, moving carefully, ensuring the princesses remained close, yet still exuding a quiet confidence. Each step he took seemed deliberate, measured, and calculated, as if he were aware of every glance, every judgment, every expectation placed upon him. The court leaned forward, unable to tear their eyes away. Vera's gaze swept over him, noting the subtle tension in his shoulders, the calm determination in his eyes, and the unyielding care for her daughters. The realization struck her like a lightning bolt. This human had earned respect, not through authority or technology, but through courage, empathy, and intelligence. Her mind raced. Vakari warriors had strength, speed, and weaponry unmatched across galaxies, yet none could achieve what this human had. He had protected her daughters, navigated danger, and remained utterly composed under scrutiny. Strength is not always measured in weapons or power, she thought. Sometimes it is measured in presence, in courage, in the ability to inspire, trust, and command attention without a word. A low murmur rippled through the throne room. Guards exchanged glances, acknowledging the undeniable truth. The humans' actions had defied everything they had been taught about fragility and weakness. Even Vera's closest aides could not suppress their astonishment. The queen's pupils constricted, and a rare expression flickered across her many eyes, something like admiration. She stepped down from her throne, approaching the human with slow, deliberate movements. Her guards remained at the edges, weapons lowered, but ready. Sensing that this moment transcended normal protocol, "You have done what no Vakari warrior could," she said, her voice steady, commanding, yet uncharacteristically warm. "You have protected my daughters. You have proven that humans are not the weak, fragile creatures we once assumed." The human's gaze met hers, calm and unwavering. He did not speak, yet his presence conveyed understanding, acknowledgement, and humility. The princesses giggled, again, pressing against him, as if affirming her words themselves. Vera nodded slightly. "From this day forward, you are recognized not as a trespasser, but as a hero. Your courage, intelligence, and intuition have earned the respect of the Vakari Empire itself. The throne room seemed to exhale. Light shimmered against the crystal panels, reflecting off the walls in dancing patterns, almost as if the palace itself recognized the significance of the moment. The aides and guards relaxed slightly, some bowing in acknowledgement of the human's unprecedented achievement. For the first time in her reign, Queen Vera realized that her understanding of strength, leadership, and trust had been limited. She had underestimated humanity. Their power was not in raw force, but in adaptability, courage, and the ability to inspire trust and loyalty. And as the human stood with her daughters, tiny hands clinging to him, the queen understood the truth. Humans were extraordinary, unpredictable, and, in ways her empire had never anticipated, capable of the impossible. The dawn light filled the throne room, casting long shadows and golden reflections. A new respect had been forged, a new understanding of what it meant to be strong, and a new alliance began, one that would shift the balance of power and perception across worlds. Queen Vera stepped back onto her throne, silent, watching, and knowing that humanity had forever changed the Vakari Empire's understanding of courage. The first rays of sunlight stretched across the Vakari Palace gardens, spilling golden light over crystalline pathways and bioluminescent flora still shimmering faintly from the night. The air was crisp, almost electric, carrying the scent of alien blooms and the subtle warmth of life. Queen Vera watched from her throne's edge, her many eyes reflecting a mixture of awe, curiosity, and a newfound respect. Her daughters giggled, tiny hands reaching out toward the human who had protected them, laughed with them, and earned their absolute trust. He knelt in the soft grass, adjusting them with gentle precision, letting their laughter ripple across the gardens. Every movement exuded calm, authority, and empathy. Even in daylight, the human's presence seemed extraordinary, as if he radiated a quiet power that demanded attention without demanding obedience. The queen's pulse quickened not with fear, but with understanding. She had witnessed courage in battle, brilliance in strategy, and strength in command, but she had never encountered this, a being so small, so underestimated, capable of commanding loyalty, inspiring trust, and achieving the impossible. The palace guards shifted uneasily, sensing the subtle change in the air. They had come prepared to enforce the queen's wrath, to punish a trespassing human. Yet now, they stood uncertain, witnessing a force that could not be measured by weapons or technology. The human had redefined the rules of engagement, through dominance, but through courage, ingenuity, and empathy. Queen Vera rose from her throne, moving slowly through the glowing paths, her gaze never leaving him. The daughters giggled again, climbing onto his shoulders for balance, their tiny forms illuminated by the morning light. He adjusted without hesitation, steady as a mountain, yet gentle as a breeze. "You have changed the way I see humanity," she said, her voice echoing softly across the gardens. "I believed your species weak, fragile, unfit to face the challenges of this galaxy, but you have proven me wrong. Through courage, intuition, and an unyielding presence, you have saved my daughters. You have earned respects, something I have seldom granted freely." The human looked at her, calm and steady, a quiet acknowledgement in his eyes. He said nothing, but his posture, his gentle gestures toward the princesses, spoke louder than words. The daughters laughed, pressing closer to him as if affirming her recognition themselves. Vera's pupils constricted in thought. The implications were staggering. Humanity, long dismissed by the Vakari as insignificant, had displayed a type of strength that no weapon, no armor, no advanced technology could replicate. Adaptability, courage under pressure, empathy, and intuition. These were qualities her empire had underestimated at its peril. She motioned to the aides and guards, who stepped forward reluctantly. "From this day forward," she declared, Humans are not to be dismissed. Their unpredictability is not weakness, it is their greatest strength. Let this human stand as a testament. Courage and ingenuity can overcome obstacles even we cannot. 4C. A soft wind rustled through the gardens, scattering petals in golden and blue light. The daughters ran around the human, their laughter echoing off crystal walls, a sound that seemed to cleanse the tension of the night and herald a new beginning. The human watched them, calm and vigilant, his presence anchoring the moment with quiet power. Queen Vera stepped back, letting the scene unfold. She had learned a lesson she would never forget. Strength is not always measured in weapons, authority, or speed. Sometimes it is measured in courage, adaptability, and the ability to inspire trust and loyalty beyond logic. As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the palace grounds, a new understanding settled over the Vakari Empire. Humanity was no longer a curiosity, no longer a species to underestimate. They were a force unpredictable, courageous, and capable of reshaping the galaxy in ways even the mightiest could not anticipate. The queen's many eyes softened as she observed her daughters at play. The human had earned not only their trust, but her respect, and in that quiet acknowledgement, a bond was formed. A new dawn rising over the empire, one in which humans were no longer underestimated, and their extraordinary potential would be recognized. Across worlds, the galaxy, once so certain of its hierarchies, had learned a profound truth. Sometimes, the most fragile beings can carry the weight of greatness. Sometimes, the impossible is simply human.